It's John Bowden from the Rock History Network, and today it's the top Australian acts. This is part one. We're working on part two right now, which will have people you expect on this list like AC/DC and In Excess, Midnight Oil, Crowded House. Those are all coming up, but in this one, we have a luxury of having Debbie Kruger on our channel. Debbie has been a publicist and a writer for so many years. She's from Australia. Songwriter Speak is the name of her new book. When we talk about Olivia Newton-John, we're going to talk about John Ferrer via Debbie Kruger, who knows the guy who was the producer and the songwriter for so many Olivia Newton-John hits. That and a lot more coming up. Top Musicians in Australian History, Part 1. On Rock History Book. And it's the top Australian acts of the 1980s. Olivia Newton-John. One of the world's best-selling artists of all time, singer-songwriter and actress, amassed 5 number 1 and 10 other top 40 Billboard Hot 100 singles, and 2 number 1 Billboard albums.
Someone like John Ferrer.
It's impossible to talk about Olivia Newton-John without talking about John Ferrer. He's an Australian music producer, songwriter, arranger, singer, and guitarist who was a member of many notable bands, but really what put him on the map was working with Olivia Newton-John from 71 to 1989. He wrote her US number 1 hits like Have You Ever Been Mellow, You're the One That I Want with John Travolta, Hopelessly Devoted to You, and Magic, and produced some number 1 albums for her, If You Love Me, Let Me Know from 74, Have You Ever Been Mellow the following year, Olivia's Greatest Hits in 82, and he co-produced the soundtrack to Grease in 78.
He's not as forthcoming as, say, a Nick Cave or a Tim Finn or a Don Walker from Cold Chisel, because John has always found it difficult to talk about himself and his work process. But as I said to him, you wrote You're the One That I Want, period. Is it the most highly complex, deep song of all time? Hell no. Is there anyone in the world that hates it? I hope not, because why would you? It's pop perfection, and it evokes a time. It evokes images, of course, from the movie Grease. It evokes beautiful Olivia and John Travolta, and just so much joy, and so much of what came before it. John's trajectory in his career and all the other songs that get mentioned in my book that he played guitar on, or that he was involved in producing, or John is shy in talking about himself. I know he had to get used to it a bit more, because in the last years of Olivia's life, there was more and more attention paid to her legacy and who was behind it. And so John would get honors and people would want to talk to him, but I think he still kept that to a minimum. I think he's an Australian national treasure, but he's lived here in the LA area for so many years that when he is back in Australia, it's very under the radar and people don't know he's there.
I guess they didn't, he and Olivia, he had said to you that they didn't really click right away, but it didn't really take that long as far as like just the groove of them working together.
Yeah, well, she had that voice. And it was one of those big world, small world things. He fell in love with Olivia's singing partner, Pat Carroll, and they got married, and that's one of the longest music marriages ever. And it was a nice small circle of influence and love that they were all in. I think probably the big breakthrough was when he produced I Honestly Love You in this little studio in London. And it became such a worldwide hit and won a Grammy or 2. And then they moved to America, and just she became the icon she became. I use that word too much, but
nope.
But John's work the importance of John Farrer's work cannot be understated. Like Olivia, I just don't know that she would have had the incredible career and length of career had it not been for John Farrer.
Newton-John starred in the 1978 musical film Grease, whose soundtrack featured two major hit duets with John Travolta, You're the One That I Want and Summer Nights. Her signature song, I Honestly Love You from 1974, and Physical in 1981, plus Let Me Be There, Have You Never Been Mellow, Hopelessly Devoted to You, also from Grease, A Little More Love. It's amazing looking at her career. The Little River Band. Formed in Melbourne, Australia in 1975, the Little River Band achieved commercial success in both Australia, the United States, and North America. The band first hit the US chart with It's a Long Way There in 76, and reached the top 20 with Help Is on Its Way and Happy Anniversary the following year.
It's totally fictional. It's not about anybody. In fact, I probably wouldn't have even written the song had I not overheard David Briggs in a rehearsal studio playing a couple of chords that were the opening chords to Happy Anniversary. And I really liked the sound of them. And I said, David, how do you play those chords, So he showed me the two chords. I went home and wrote the song, basically all of it, except for the bridge in it. And then took the song back to David, and then between the two of us, we wrote the bridge for it. That's really all there is to it. It was a song that came very quickly. It's kind of repetitive. I think the thing that Glenn doesn't like about some of my songs is that they're kind of repetitive. Like the same chords might be in the chorus as well as the verse, and Happy Anniversary is one of those songs. So I can understand why he get sick of singing them all the time. Of course, the great thing about Happy Anniversary is the bass line that George McArdle provided for it. And, what influenced me actually for the feel of the song was a Boz Scaggs song. I think it might have been Lowdown.
By 1978, the band released their most successful single, Reminiscing, which peaked at number 3. Reminiscing, I remember like certain Beatle loving that one. To me, Reminiscing to me, and I know you've heard this before, Graham, but to me, that's like the perfect song.
Well, I've come to see it that way too. I mean, I didn't feel that when I wrote it, but it's not just the perfect song. I think it's a perfect record in terms of every part on that record is just so stunningly original. And that song will be around for 500 years. Like, it's just so timeless. It's there are certain songs that just the planets align somehow. But I've had as you can imagine, so much feedback about that song. But I even had some guy years ago. He was a conservatory musician, and he said the chords in Reminiscing, he said, as far as he could see, have never been ever put into a song before that way. It changed the intro, and then it changes key coming down into the verse. He said, you must be like, did you write it on piano? How'd you do this? And I said, well, look, no, none of that. I could just hear that in my head, and I just transcribed it onto my guitar. It took me like under half an hour to write it. The lyric came with the melody and the chords.
But the phrasing of that, even the beginning, I mean, I'm listening to the phrasing, I'm going, sounds like a guy talking, but the bounce of the phrasing and even going into the chorus, I'm going, how did he come up with that?
Well, okay. The inspiration, I didn't deliberately inspire it, but what about, this was the bar being set by Cole Porter. So if you think of Night and Day,
yeah,
like the beat of the tom tom, da 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 da, with a da 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 da. That's the one note thing. Friday night it was late, I was walking you home. So I started with Friday night it was late on the one note, but then Friday night it was late, I was walking you home. We got down to the gate and I was dreaming of the night. The chord change there. Yeah. It's magical, but that's just what I heard, and that's just what happened. But and soon as I got that Friday night it was late thing, like I just loved all those black and white movies, you know, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers with the lamps walking down the street after the dance, and it's all beautifully lit and there's a bit of fog around or something like that. That's the whole image of my thing, because I wanted to have that life. I never had that life. I never had a girlfriend when I was young. I never experienced what I was seeing in those awesome American movies of the black and white era, and even that was the life I wanted to have. I still want to have it, but maybe it's not too late. I don't know. But I never had a prom. I never went to the prom. I never had any of all the imagery that's in reminiscing. I have never personally experienced in my life. I've never danced with a girl on a dance floor or ever any of that. Never. But I could put it in the song. So I just let my imagination go, and I think because it is an experience of so many people, particularly in the US and Canada, and that is what goes on in America when you're a teenager, and you have that they're the most wonderful years. So people can relate to it so much, and it's just it is a perfect song for so many reasons, and that's why it just goes on and on and on and on, and just I mean every day I just get my email box is full with people saying how much they love that song and what a companion it's been for their life. It's a wonderful thing.
Did you know? I mean, that's a generic question, but when you were putting it together, did you know there's something here?
No, I didn't. And even when it was recorded, we recorded it 3 times. The first twice it didn't work out because it didn't have the right keyboard player on it, but eventually we got Peter Jones, who's the most wonderful, who played the Rhodes on the song. But when we finished Sleeper Catcher and the album went to Capitol, we were waiting for 5 weeks before we got a call to say, look, we like the album, but there are no singles on it. Could we maybe record something else? And then some guy in New York said, look, you guys are crazy. Reminiscing is a smash. That's what you should be putting out. And they said, well, I don't know. It's a bit, the Capitol was saying that they couldn't hear it. So they reluctantly put it out. And of course, it just went ballistic. But it wasn't like, oh, isn't this wonderful? And even we didn't think, well, this is the song we've been waiting for. We didn't, even though we loved the record that we'd made, but we didn't say, well, this is really going to get us going now. But then we followed it up with Lady, which was as big, and in fact is equally as big with even today on the same record. And so it was just, as I say, planets align. But we didn't know. We just were in there recording. Well, I put Lady together forward for the first album, all the albums. It got knocked back because Glenn didn't really like the song. It wasn't a lyric that he enjoyed. So it was always sort of left off and never got a Guernsey. But then when it came to Sleeper Catcher, we had 1 spot left, and I brought Lady again, and Glenn said, oh, not again. And luckily the producer agreed to put it on. And Glenn said, look, you know I don't like the song. I said, look, I know, Glenn, but we're bowing down the producer. I think it's a pretty good song. So he went out and gave it a shot. And then, of course, that was massive too.
Several more hits carried the band in the early 1980s with Lady, Lonesome Loser, Cool Change. So was Cool Change really you saying I've been away from home too long and I got to change my life a little bit? It really was autobiographical?
Yeah, most of my songs are. And Cool Change was certainly one of those. Yeah, I was getting a little weary, I think. You know, we'd been on the road for quite a while, and I thought we'd better maybe step aside a bit and write some things and smell the roses, spend the money. So I wrote Cool Change.
And the Little River Band had more hits. The Night Owls, Take It Easy on Me, Man on Your Mind, and The Other Guy. Air Supply, consisting of English singer-songwriter and guitarist Graham Russell and Australian lead vocalist Russell Hitchcock, the soft rock duo had a succession of hits worldwide, including 8 top 10 hits in the United States in the early 80s. And in 1980, there was Lost in Love, their first of 7 consecutive top 5 singles, including the number 1, The One That You Love in 81, and they reached the top 5 again with the number 2 hit, Making Love Out of Nothing at All in 1983. Rick Springfield. Starting with his solo hit single, Speak to the Sky, which reached number 10 in Australia in mid-1972, the singer and actor moved to the United States and had a number 1 hit with Jessie's Girl in 1981. It was a hit all over the world, and he received a Grammy Award for Best Male Rock vocal performance. He followed that up with another top 10 hit, I've Done Everything for You, Don't Talk to Strangers, Affair of the Heart, and Love Somebody. Men at Work. Originally formed in 1979, Men at Work are best known for their two big hits, Who Can It Be Now and Down Under.
When you wrote those, Who Can It Be Now and Down Under, did you have any idea of the success they were going to have?
I had an idea that they could be successful, but to what degree, I had no idea, I thought they were good tunes, though. And other people seem to think so as well.
Yeah, obviously.
But, the level of success wasn't something that I used to really, spend all that much time. But, right from the start of the band, a lot of people used to come and see us, So we could feel this, we could feel that something was happening.
Both released off their debut album, Business as Usual, in 1982, and both shot to number 1 on the U.S. Billboard chart in 82 and 83. They followed that up the following year with the Cargo album, which had more hits, top 10 singles like Overkill and It's a Mistake. Their third and final album was Two Hearts in 1985. The Vegemite Sandwich Band. Colin Hay.
Have you said that to Colin Hay? I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. How many times has he heard that, eh? Jeez.
I don't know.
Oh, it's got to be.
Sandwich Band.
I didn't know. Well, first of all, Business as Usual. I used to drive one of those old 78 Trans Am with the funky chicken on the hood, with the hawk on the hood, I used to be driving that thinking I was cool. And I remember the first album I bought, when I bought that album, was Business as Usual. And I was right in line for Cargo right after that. And I was just getting into radio at that time. What was he like?
Oh, Colin is a joy. He's lovely. And I went in June, and sitting in the Greek Theatre of Los Angeles and hearing, 5, 6, 7,000 people, however many people sit there, sing Colin's songs to him. Colin, it was quite profound because I hadn't seen him perform to a big crowd in America before. And he still sings incredibly beautifully. He is very, very funny. He's a Scot. Oh my God. You want to talk about dry? Yeah, he's a character. And he's made a career in his later years in touring around, being a storyteller of around his songs. Interesting connections. His wife Cecilia was previously married to Tris Imboden, who'd been in Chicago, and I knew Cecilia from those days, and I went to their house in Topanga Canyon, and she's like, oh, when Colin and I got married, it was such a big story in Australia. And she brought out all these Australian magazines to show me, and she was so chuffed that, Colin is such a national treasure back in Australia, but he lives the life of a true songwriting artist in Topanga Canyon, in the woods in LA, and he is a gentleman, that old expression, a gentleman and a scholar. He's clever.
Well, I think back on Men at Work, indeed with fond memories, but I think there were always personality and musical problems, and whatever other problems you care to mention, they were there, which ended up with the split, in 84, when left Greg and Ron and I, which wasn't a particularly nice split. It wasn't what you'd call amicable. But after that, when Ron left and Greg left, they were, both, not based on anything except, I don't really want to, go through this again. Once was enough. Thanks very much.
Remember, if you want to help the channel, there are links in the description where you can help us out. If you want to make a PayPal donation, there's a link there. You can buy a t-shirt or a cap or a coat with Rock History Book, Rock History Music, Rock History Canada on them right here or in front. Join our Patreon. You'll get early access to our videos. But subscribe, click on the bell notification. Make sure you comment on our videos, like them, and spread them on social media. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book.